Cell phones have revolutionized how people do pretty much everything. They've made life much faster, more convenient, and more connected. They help friends and family talk from far distances over video chat. They're also great for getting information about the hottest restaurants, reserving an Airbnb, or requesting an Uber to get a ride home. Cell phones have become so integral to everyone's lives, it's easy to forget what people used to do before they were around. Which raises the question, what was life like before cell phones? It's likely today's kids have no idea what life was like before cell phones were invented. Well, let me enlighten you. I'm Mike with List 25, and here are 25 things people did before cell phones you won't believe. #25. Used actual cameras. Today it seems like only serious photographers use actual cameras to take pictures. Everyone else uses their cell phone. However, before cell phones, everyone used a camera. Whether digital, analog, or disposable, to take pictures, you had to lug around another device. 24. Listen to music on CDs or MP3 players. Music streaming straight from the internet has become the popular source of music today. But back before the internet was readily available, and depending on how far back you go, people used CDs and MP3 players to listen to music. You couldn't just pick whatever song you wanted at any given moment. 23. Owned road maps. It might be hard to believe, but when traveling far distances, people bought physical maps, like those huge Rand McNally maps, to help them get to a certain destination. Rather than a computer's voice kindly telling Dad where to go, it was likely your mom holding a map and yelling at him. 22. Ask for directions. When the physical map failed to get a person where they wanted to go, especially in rural farm towns or confusing cities, people tended to find the nearest gas station and ask for directions. 21. Checked email on the computer only. Checking email on a phone is a novelty taken for granted. Before smartphones, most people checked their email on the computer only. During the dial-up days, that meant waiting for your modem to make a hideous noise before logging into your email client, only to discover you got one email from your grandma. 20. Calculated tips manually. Few people had calculators at the ready when going to restaurants. So, when they needed to figure out how much to tip the waiter, they utilized their brain power to calculate the amount. It was a magical time. 19. Use the ATM to check a bank balance. Online banking simply wasn't a thing for a long time. To know your balance, you had to manage your checkbook register like a hawk or go to an ATM. It's no surprise that finding out you were broke at an ATM screen was no less devastating. 18. Use real taxis. Before cell phones, hailing a random person to pick you up was called hitchhiking, and it was also mostly illegal and also pretty dangerous. Instead, you hailed a taxi on a street or called for one on the phone. 17. Played board games. Granted, people still play board games today, but honestly, it's usually when their cell service isn't very good and there's nothing else to do. For many families and communities, board game nights were a frequent and much anticipated event that either fostered bonding or resulted in a shouting match. 16. Used hard cash. Venmo, PayPal, Apple Pay, and tons of other options have made it virtually easy to pay anyone you want through the internet. But in the before time, you had to resort to using cold, hard cash to pay your neighbor's kid for mowing your lawn or to tip the pizza guy at the door. 15. Use the phone as a phone. The phone was a phone before cell phones. That's all people used it for. It connected to the wall with an extremely long extendable cord that teenage girls got wrapped up in when they talked to their boyfriends for hours all night. 14. Posted unfiltered pictures. People went on Facebook and Twitter on their computers and posted unfiltered pictures. As is. No elaborate filter, no emojis or graphic art. Just the picture. It was a beautiful time. 13. Played video games on a Gameboy. Before cell phones, people played mobile video games on a Nintendo Game Boy, or maybe a Sega Game Gear. There weren't any in-app purchases or banner ads, just an incredibly difficult game that made you want to throw the Game Boy up against a wall. It was amazing.
12.
Used an answering machine. Remember, texting didn't really exist before cell phones. So when people expected a call from someone but weren't around, they could trust on their handy-dandy answering machine to record it for them.
11.
Used payphones. Quick, you're walking down the street in a big city and suddenly realize you have to call home. Cell phones don't exist yet. What do? The answer, of course, is to use a payphone. These relics of yore used to be on every city block. You'd toss in a quarter and could make a call. Understandably, no one really misses them.
10.
Stayed committed to things. Arguably, flaking out on a commitment is much easier today than it was before cell phones. Today, you can tell a friend you're going to help them move, and then a week later, shoot them a text saying you'd rather stay home and binge watch Game of Thrones. Before cell phones, you'd actually have to call them up and tell them, suffering through the disappointment in their voice or their yelling in your ear.
9.
Memorized phone numbers. Since people didn't have a phone on them at any given moment, they had to rely on their memories to keep track of phone numbers. Most people had at least 10 different phone numbers memorized for various people in their life. For everyone else, they might have kept a tiny black phone book or a Rolodex.
8.
Felt genuinely alone. When someone sat in their bedroom by themselves without a computer, television, or cell phone, they were genuinely alone. They couldn't alleviate it quickly by checking their feed. They dealt with it by listening to music, reading a book, or doing some other hobby.
7.
Used a phone book. Smartphones provide a slew of apps to give us the information we need about businesses, restaurants, addresses, and neighborhoods. Before all that, you excavated a massive yellow tome called the phone book and flipped through it like Gandalf researching at the Library of Gondor.
6.
Used three-way calling. Three-way calling was kind of a big deal before cell phones. People didn't just talk to one person on the phone, but two. This revolutionary communication service was so cool until cell phones and texting happened.
5.
Tied up the home phone line. In the evening hours, the home phone was a valuable commodity. Plenty of fights and family meetings ensued over it, trying to come to a decision on when it could be used and how no one was allowed to tie up the phone for several hours talking to friends.
4.
Went outside. People, kids especially, utilized the outside world like they just discovered Narnia for the first time. Kids rode bikes around the neighborhood for hours, went to the playground, and played games in their backyard.
3.
Sat patiently. When people went to a doctor's appointment or were required to sit quietly for long periods of time, they just sat patiently and remained. Occasionally, they might read a magazine or book if it was available, but for the most part, they just sat and waited.
2.
Use their imagination. Often when school was out and the summer days got especially boring, kids pulled out their best toy, their imagination. They'd make up worlds, be able to entertain themselves, and be creative for hours and hours until dinner time.
1.
Made eye contact. Not only did people go out to more social events, but when they shook your hand and talked to you, they looked you in the eye. So, what else did you used to do before cell phones? Let us know in the comments below, or tweet your answer to us at List25.
Enjoying our lists? Be sure to click that subscribe button on the bottom right and the notification bell so you don't miss out on new ones every Monday through Friday. Share them with friends and help us consistently conciliate curiosity. And if you want even more lists, check out these videos here or just head to our website at list25.com.